Hi, everyone. You know, fishing trips seem to be funny things. If you love the outdoors like I do and you love fishing, all months of the year, which of course is available on the Pacific coast of Canada where we are now, you realize also that you don't always catch the fish that you're after. We've been on a trip today where we got completely skunked. And it brings to mind, though, another trip where we caught so many fish under such ideal conditions that we thought we'd show it to you. And the type of fish that we're mainly after are the toughest and the most sporting of all the game fish in Canada. These are called steelhead trout, the great giant rainbows that come up from the salt water on the Pacific coast all the way from Alaska right through to California, and they enter the freshwater streams almost every month of the year, but primarily in the wintertime. And where we're going to take you is on Vancouver Island, the very far northern end of it, a place near Port Hardy called the Mahatta River. And we're going to go fishing on the Mahatta River and in Mahhata Lake and catch steelhead so thick and so many that it's very, very hard to believe. We didn't catch them today here on this river, but we sure caught them the other day, and we're going to take you there. Once again, my name is Ted Peck, and a very pleasant welcome to Tides and Trails. As I recall, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls, we left on the regular Pacific Western Airlines daily flight to Port Hardy, which is a matter of about 3 or 4 hours up the coast, and we landed at Port Hardy Airport. We then negotiated with the BC Airlines, who fly regular little charter trips down to the Mahhata River camp. And the one point I want to bring up before I take you fishing with us is that most of the streams on the north end of Vancouver Island, in fact, a lot of the key streams all along the coast of British Columbia, are controlled pretty well by the major logging corporations. And before going on this fishing trip, we phoned the head office of the Rainier Corporation, which happens to have a camp right at Mahhata River. And public relations is very important. If you're going to fish on property that is controlled by a tree farm license, as we did in this case, this is what we did. So we're going to take you now to Mahhata River. You're going to see the scenes as we actually arrived, and we're going to catch steelhead, the likes of which I've never had the experience before.
As we were saying, ladies and gentlemen, we went north by the Pacific Western Airlines daily flight, which goes to Port Hardy, and used the facilities of the BC Airlines, which has a charter base right at Port Hardy, to go down to the Mahhata River area. This is the Mahhata River camp operated by the Rainier Corporation, and you can see the modern facilities there that the logging people have. Beautiful Mahhata Lake, and the entire area is just teeming with fish. The main reason, of course, for most people living on the west coast of Vancouver Island, particularly along the Quatsino Sound area where these films were taken, is logging. Which runs through the area, the Mahhata River, was the one we were to fish, and we came upon it, shall we say, at a very poor time. It was in spate or in flood, and the river we were going to make our show on, the beautiful Mahhata River, which has steelhead and cutthroat trout in it almost every month of the year, was in full flood and was impossible to wade at any point. So by the good graces of Pat Schreiber, the woods boss, the logging camp manager, he took us to his favorite spot, which was a narrowing in the Mahhata Lake. This is the place, Pat? How about that? You mean to say they're steelhead right in here?
Right here.
And trout.
That's trout, too.
Is this the best time of the year for them?
Well, actually, it is. Snow in summer, the fly fishing is pretty good.
Don't mind if I go right off the bat. I see Roger's got his line in the water right away. The gentleman with the safety hat there is Pat Schreiber, one of the best sportsmen and best loved personages, shall we say, in the entire West Coast area. A wonderful person who manages the Mahatta River camp for the Rainier people. We used common salted fish roe for bait, which of course is very, very deadly for steelhead. And I personally couldn't believe at this point that this narrowing in the lake was so full of the giant steelhead trout, which go up to 15 pounds in the summer run and up to 25 pounds in the winter run, as Pat had told me. I just couldn't believe it. So we set out fishing with the usual method of using a float. Roger's line was first in the water. In fact, he had it in almost immediately as he left the truck. And Glenn was very, very interested in his fishing as well. Here's Roger making about his third cast, and he was the first one to connect with a steelhead. A small one, a beautiful fish, though, a fighting rainbow trout up from the sea that would go somewhere between 3 and 4 pounds. The average, however, from this bridge was much, much larger, running around 8.5 to 9 pounds. But a lot of us, as I've said before, when we were youngsters, have fished off bridges all across Canada and the United States, and been fortunate enough in some occurrences and instances to catch beautiful fish and a lot of eating fish, but never have I seen a bridge so teeming with these beautiful steelheads. And all this thanks to Pat Schreiber, who described how to get to it. It was simply a matter of driving up the logging road, and here you see Roger landing the steelhead in the most unorthodox manner. You're going to see even more unorthodox fishing a little later on when we beach the steelhead along the shoreline.
Oh boy, I hope you don't break that line. 5 pounds of steelhead coming up. Don't trash around steelhead. Hurry up!
There's Roger's first fish, as I say, a beautiful fresh run steelhead trout of about 3.5 to 4 pounds. Threatening to throw it back.
That's a very nice trout. Anybody finds
Dispatch it quickly. And that fish had just come up from the sea, a beautiful little female of, as I say, 4 pounds and in perfect condition. The Mahhata River, and of course the lake at the top end of it, has fish in it of this quality almost every month in the year except the month of May. Although we are bait fishing, in this case, Pat Schreiber, the logging superintendent there, told us that during the summer months, this is some of the finest fly fishing water in Western Canada. During the high water, of course, the division between the upper and lower end of the lake was running quite swiftly, and about his 5th cast, young Glenn Venus from Port Hardy hooked a beautiful steelhead, much larger than Roger's, and put up a tremendous battle. This fish would go about 8.5 pounds.
That's that daddy.
Oh, he's a beauty. He's a good...
That's today, yeah.
Let's reel him up a little bit more. Wait, wait. Awesome. You're not getting anything on him. You say you're real stream.
Never underestimate the fighting capabilities of the steelhead trout under any circumstances, even in the lake, as you see here. They're capable of taking a run of 100 yards without even thinking twice about it. And their first instinct, in most cases in rivers, is to head right back to the Pacific Ocean whence they came. Using fairly heavy bait fishing tackle, as you see us doing here, they seldom ran over about 60 yards down into the lake. And young Glenn has tired this one out pretty well. And now you're going to see our other rather unorthodox but practical method for landing large trout from 20 feet in the air.
Pat, can you reach him from
there? In this case, Pat Schreiber, being our host on the trip, went down below and skidded the giant steelhead up the beach. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to fish for steelhead along the coast of North America, remember that they are just a great big rainbow trout that spends most of its life in salt water. This one, you see the scar on the side of that fish, had been bitten by a seal in the sea. And this was one of Glenn's very first large fish that he's ever taken. He was certainly a proud youngster that day. There are two other types of fish that we were able to catch. One of the most predominant, and these are the trout that can be caught readily on the fly during the spring and summer months. And this one was a cutthroat trout, the coastal cutthroat, averaging about 1.5 pounds. This one being closer to 2 pounds than 1.5 pounds. Beautiful specimens, and they will come readily to the fly in the spring and summer months. And we wish we had had our fly tackle on this particular occasion to try a wet fly on them, and I think we could have induced them to take perhaps a silver-bodied fly as well as the bait or the lures that we were using at the time. We were fishing in late November, primarily for steelhead trout that had come into the river system in September and October. While we were fishing, a thief appeared.
Three more fine and wonderful fishing companions on this fishing day that we had on the Mahatta. Roger Lizzie, of course, a wonderful sportsman, lives in Port Hardy. Young Glenn Venus, catching his first 2 or 3 steelheads. And Pat Schreiber, one of the most far-sighted of the logging bosses that I've ever met on the BC coast. Just before we take you back on the bridge at Mahatta Lake, once again, a few more things I want to mention in general about the area, and that is always ask permission first if you're going to go to one of the logging company's areas, and if you once make friends with any of the logging superintendents, as we have with Pat Schreiber, you'll have no trouble at all. You must stay off the logging roads when they're being used during the week particularly. Most of the major logging companies, in fact almost all of them along the coast, are very generous with their policies as far as sharing the forest and the streams with the sportsmen of Canada and the United States. But now we'll be back after these words from some very, very important people.
The break between our fishing here, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I'd explain the 3 kinds of fish we've been lucky enough to catch off of one bridge. And we've actually had 4, counting the sockeye salmon, but of course we release all of them. These are the 3 fish here: the steelhead trout, the cutthroat trout, and the Dolly Varden trout. Actually, the Dolly Varden is a char, not a trout. Char being 1 order of life lower than trouts, or perhaps even 2. But a lot of the people all over Canada and the United States call them trout, so they're classified generally as trout. They're a cousin of the eastern brook trout and the lake trout as well, which are both chars. But these 2 here, the top ones, the steelhead and the cutthroat, are the 2 native coastal trout of the Pacific Ocean, all the way from Alaska right down to California. The steelhead, this typical one here, being about 7 or 8 pounds, a female. You can tell by a number of factors why they're steelhead and not cutthroat. They have much smaller mouth in proportion. They're much sort of generally longer fish. They have, their mouth never comes behind their eye. All true trouts have a perfectly square tail. In this case, the steelhead has a very nicely, typically example of one. Spots running out all along in concentric lines. Same as the cutthroat there, but the big difference in the cutthroat, he's got lots more teeth. He's got a much bigger mouth, great huge mouth on a cutthroat, capable of eating minnows, whereas your steelhead does eat minnows out in the sea, but up in lakes, they more or less quit feeding. The reason the cutthroat is called a cutthroat, he has two large slashes under his jaw, and it's very quite obvious here, as you can see. And the Dolly Varden, getting back down to him again, the eye is very high up on the fish, and all chars are the same way. The trout's eyes are a little bit lower down on the side of their face than the chars, and there's a pronounced V in the tail of the dolly, as there is in a lake trout, or even some of the other chars. The one exception to this in chars is the eastern brook trout, or square tail. But they have no black spots. Your chars have, in this particular case, the dolly here has red spots on him, and some of them have red with blue halos on them. Some of them even have blue spots, but they don't have any black. And your cutthroat is spotted all the way around, even on his tummy. And the steelhead, particularly when they first come out of salt water, they're pure silver. And once they live in a stream or lake for a little while, they gradually color up to the typical rainbow coloration that they possess in fresh water, which is a very beautiful type of fish. So there's your steelhead, your cutthroat trout, and your Dolly Varden char, which we've been lucky enough to catch off of one bridge in one day.
Beautiful country, Mahhata Lake, and also the beautiful Mahhata River. I wish we could have shown you more of the river, because it's one of the prettiest streams in BC. Here I catch a medium to large cutthroat trout for the area, perhaps 1 pound and 3/4. Again, I would have much preferred to catch this one on a fly rather than on bait, because we were fishing for much larger fish. Our tackle necessarily was a little bit stronger than to catch one of these size fish here. Almost every one of the river and lake systems along the west coast of Vancouver Island has fish of this quality in it, but they are very inaccessible. Here I loaned Pat, our host, my rod, and his second drift down through the lake latched him into a very fine steelhead of perhaps 10 pounds, and it took quite a bit of time to beach and put up a very creditable scrap in one of the many rain showers that were occurring during the day. Pat is a very good sportsman, and he has the opportunity to catch these fish all the time, so we released his fish. And it's not too uncommon to see most true sportsmen in the steelhead fishermen group release over half of the fish they catch. And to let a rainbow trout of, well, anywhere from 8 to 25 pounds go back into the water is something that you have to learn, and you have to take a few fish first to realize that steelhead are one of the finest game fish in the world, and if you let them back in the water, they will spawn, and a good percentage of them will return to the sea and come back up a second time, much as the Atlantic salmon does on the east coast of North America. As a matter of fact, the steelhead trout and the Atlantic salmon are very close cousins. Incidentally, that rain shower I was talking about lasted for about 20 minutes, and about a quarter-inch of rain fell, and this is why we had a flooding condition. And parts of the west coast and even along Quatsino Sound, the rainfall goes well over 100 inches in most places per year, and in some areas even goes as high as 300 inches per year. And this is what makes the big trees, the prosperity of the logging interests, and naturally makes the big fish too, because it gives lots of water, lots of area for them to live. Here I've caught a very nice steelhead, and here's where I want to remind all of you once again, never underestimate a steelhead, because just when you think you've caught him and you're going to beach him, he'll take another 2 or 3 runs, and this is when they can break your tackle. That's exactly what this one did. We got him ashore once, and then back he went out again. And had it been in a river where he'd had the advantage of the current plus the logs and rocks and the stumps, this one certainly would have gone free. This would be a male steelhead of about 12 pounds. When the steelhead trout enter fresh water, no matter what month they do, they live in the fresh water for a while, and they gradually color up to the typical rainbow coloration, and particularly those of the male sex, the bucks or cockfish, as they're called when referring to Atlantic salmon. As they are in fresh water for a period of time, you'll see a very brilliant red stripe down their sides along their lateral line, which eventually turns into a dull brick red, and when they get in this condition, most of the sportsmen will release them. But this one had been in perhaps about 3 weeks, and it just started to get that beautiful coloration. We wish we had color television to show you the stripe down the side. About 12 pounds of fighting West Coast steelhead trout. Then the fishing action got very interesting. Many trout and a few more steelhead were taken, including a few elderly salmon here, which we released, and everyone pretty well was able to catch a limit of fish, once again due to the courtesy of the Rainier people and Pat Schreiber of the Mahhata River Camp. On Vancouver Island, the limit of steelhead is 3 per day per person, and you must punch your steelhead card if you have a resident license, and even a non-resident license. But they must report the steelhead that you catch. And here's one here that Roger took. You see Roger's landing method of them, and he found it a little dark and released it. Many cutthroat trout as well. A fantastic fishing spot on a bridge in a narrowing of a lake. Most of the residents of the Mahhata River Camp, which is about 300, eat fish most of the year. And you can see why. A wonderful place to fish. And once again, we'd like to thank the Rainier people, Roger Lizzie from Port Hardy, young Glenn Venus, who was with us, for providing a wonderful show and a wonderful place to catch some of the finest game fish in North America.
Some fishing, wasn't it? We all got our steelheads, some of us got cutthroat and Dolly Varden as well, and the Seagull had his share of the catch to boot. It doesn't happen that way all the time. As you see, it didn't happen to us today. We got away skunked on this river, but that fishing trip will live in my memory the rest of my life. And if you'd like to get there and do it the right way, I'll tell you about how to do this after this message. If there's just one thing that we could emphasize now, ladies and gentlemen, about getting to a place like Mahhata River, it is the knowledge that you must have that a lot of these rivers are controlled by the logging corporations. The McMillan and Bloedel and Powell River Corporation, the Rainier Corporation, as you saw here in this film, BC Forest Products, Canadian Forest Products. A lot of the big logging companies have tree farm licenses along a lot of the rivers of the BC coast. If you want to go to Mahhata River, get in touch with the public relations people first of the big logging companies. And there's limited accommodation at Mahhata River, very limited. As a matter of fact, they can only put up about 4 to 6 people at once. But the fishing season is long, Pat Schreiber himself is a great sportsman, a good fly fisherman in the summer. And he catches fish from, well, right through, except the month of May. That's the only month he says that the fishing is poor. The saltwater fishing is just as good at the mouths of these streams as well. Hope you enjoyed our fishing trip. Come along with us in your living rooms next week. We'd certainly appreciate it. Be true sportsmen. Ted Peck wishing you all the best. And tight lines, straight shooting.